Listen, I'm going to say the thing that the wealth gurus won't tell you. Most of us in Gen X, we're looking at our 401ks right now and realizing we're about $400,000 short of where we thought we'd be. Between the lost decade of the 2000s, raising kids, and now helping our aging parents, the math just isn't mathing, folks. And I'm Sabado. I was a chief HR executive who managed thousands of retirement plans before I walked away at 51. Today, I'm not giving you the same save your money on latte advice. I'm giving you the brutally honest blueprint to close that $400,000 gap in the next 5 to 10 years. So let's get into it. The first strategy I want to talk about is what I call the ego house downsize. We got ego houses, we got ego cars, but I'm not going to focus on cars because we all know by now that you don't buy an $80,000 car before you buy a house. But the biggest asset you have is likely your home equity, but it's also your biggest trap. Most people wait until they actually retire to downsize. And folks, that's a mistake. If you downsize now, 5 years early, you're not just lowering your mortgage, you're nuking property taxes, maintenance, and insurance. If you could pull 200K in equity out today and let it sit in a boring index fund over the next 5 years, that 400K gap, it's already half closed before you even quit. So stop paying for ego rooms that you have to vacuum once a month and put that money where it's going to work for you and get you to where it is that you want to be for the rest of your life. The second strategy I want to talk about really comes from some insider knowledge or at least expertise that I had, and it really deals with the Secure 2.0. As an HR executive, I saw people leave money on the table every single day. And in 2026, the Secure Act 2.0 catch up rules are your best friend. If you're over 50, you can now shove significantly more into your 401k. But here's the pro tip: if your employer offers a mega backdoor Roth, use it. It allows you to put post money away that grows tax free forever. Forever? Forever, ever? And if you're a high earner in your peak years, this is how you cheat the clock. So check with your HR department, ask specifically about in plan Roth conversions, and they'll think you're a genius. In fact, a lot of HR folks may not even know about them, but push the issue, ask the question, because if you don't ask, they're probably not going to tell you. In fact, in my last job, one of the things that we focused on was making sure that people that were retiring became informed consumers because a lot of people just don't understand how the 401k works. Folks, unless you got a Sabado in your life, nobody's talking to you about this. I'm just lacing you up with that GAME so that way you have an understanding that these things exist and you can ask the questions. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about and address is I got a comment that told me that what I was saying was misleading and I think probably giving people false hope. And he said that most people don't get pensions and they don't get 457 plans. So 457 plans are non-qualified deferred compensation plans. And they're typically for people that make over a certain threshold. And it used to be like $100,000 or $125,000. So granted, I know a lot of people don't make that kind of money, but I also know a lot of you do. And so if it doesn't relate to you, fine. You're all like it's bougie. I'm like it's fine. I'm just trying to give you $1 million worth of game for $9.99, actually for free. So if you have a 457 plan, use it. If you're not eligible for it, don't. And the other thing is about pensions. We want to talk about, I was at the jeweler today. We were taking some gold back, trying to get some cheddar for, that's what us retired folks do is we're always looking for the opportunities to make that cheddar. Took back some old gold teeth and some old jewelry and stuff like that. And we were talking to the guy about pensions. And the thing we realized, and I think most people know, that unless you're in healthcare, unless you work for an old school industry or you work for the government somewhere, you may not have a pension. Fine. But you know what? If you do, it's butter. If you don't, that's cool. But ask the question, make sure you know what it is that you have to do. Because I talked to a lot of people during my chat with Sabado chats, and those folks are working for the government. I'm talking to people in Virginia, DC that got laid off from the government. I'm talking to people down in Texas. I'm talking to people in California. I'm talking to people all around the country. And guess what? They have pensions. So before you go and get on that haterade because you may not feel like you're in a situation where you could do what you want to do, just ask yourself the question, does it apply to me? Yes. Okay, I can use it. Does it apply to me? No, because at the end of the day, my approach isn't I have all the answers because I don't. And sometimes I get it wrong. But I'm making sure that you understand that these things exist so that way you can ask the question. And it's never a one size fits all proposition. So after that little short commercial, back to our regularly scheduled programming. The third strategy that I want to talk about is you just want to stop tipping the government. This is really about tax efficiency. When you have a $400,000 gap, you can't afford to be inefficient. Most Gen Xers have their money in tax deferred accounts, which means Uncle Sam's owns about 25% of your balance. We need to look at tax loss harvesting and asset allocation. Stop putting high growth stocks in taxable accounts where you pay every time they pay a dividend. Now, let me say that again. Stop putting high growth stocks in taxable accounts where you have to pay every time they pay you a dividend. Move the tax heavy stuff to your IRA. Closing the gap isn't about making more, it's about keeping more. If you save 5% of your taxes over the next decade, that's tens of thousands of dollars closer to your goal. And another way, and this is just a little bit of side game for you, is stop paying fees. Stop paying high interest credit card debt. Don't get yourself in a high interest credit card debt. If you have an ATM card, don't go out of network. Don't be lazy. Go to the bank that you bank with to make sure that you're not paying those fees because they always say like what my man say? Scarface said, "You done $10'd me out." Well, that's what they're doing. They're nickel and diamond. If you think about every time you go to the ATM and every time you pay $5, let's say you go 10 times a month, that's $50 a month, son. So think about that. Just be smart. I'm not telling you to do anything out of this world. If you got to go 100 miles to get in network, I would say change your bank, but then you got to do what you got to do. But these are things that we don't think about. Think about those subscriptions that you don't use. Stop giving your money away because when you start thinking about all the money you give away, in fact, you know what I want you to do? I want you to look at all the money you give away. We call that revenue leakage where I'm from. But think about all that money that you're giving away and ask yourself, count it up. How much is that? And my wife would say, well, I would say it's only $5. My wife would tell me, well, if you found $5 on the ground, would you pick it up? Hell yeah, I'd pick it up in a minute. Now, some of you may not. You might say, oh, I'm too good to pick up $5 on the ground. So I'm going to tell you this. If you find $5 on the ground, you're too good to pick it up, call your man Sabado. One thou wow. I'll be right there in a minute. Quick, fast, in a hurry. No questions asked. But those types of decisions are going to move you closer to where it is that you want to be. Strategy number 4 is what I call the fractional bridge. And finally, stop thinking about retirement as a light switch. I get a lot of people that say, well, what if you run out of money? And they give me all of this drag about they retire and then what happens 10 years from now if something happens. But if you look at it as a light switch, sure, that's a risk. And you can either turn on or you can turn it off. But if you're $400,000 short and you don't have to work 60 hours a week, then don't. I'll tell you, most of you don't have to do that. Go fractional. Use those decades of that experience that you have of corporate wisdom to work 2 days a week. And if that covers your living expenses, you can let the retirement nest egg sit untouched and compounding for the next 3 years. Think about that for a second. If you don't need to use it all, so I'll give you an example. One of the things my wife and I did prior to us retiring, we had money that was sitting in different places that we just had saved because we were able to manage our lifestyle with what we were making. So we didn't have to touch that. If you could retire and put your nest egg to the side and maybe have some side hustles, I don't want to tell people to go drive for Uber and stuff like that, but whatever it is, if you got some type of skill, so as an HR person, I can go out and do consulting. In fact, my wife did some consulting for a little bit of time. Then that means I don't have to touch my nest egg. And the longer I can go without touching my nest egg, the better off it is for us. The better off it is for you. So think about a strategy that's going to help you save some of your nest egg and just not touch it. If you could do that with side hustles, I was talking to some folks the other day and I said, one of the things I always suggest you do is start a YouTube channel because the thing that YouTube lacks is people that are keeping it real. People are going to want to hear what you have to say and you're going to find your people. Of the 4 billion people in the world, there's going to be people that resonate with your story if you're doing something that others may do. And sometimes it's just about talking about how difficult life is. A lot of these lifestyle vlogs are just about people that have difficult lives or have different circumstances, and they're just telling you about them, and they got way more views than I'll ever get because more people are going to resonate with that. And you know what? That's cool because my whole gig, my whole shtick is trying to help you understand that normal people could do extraordinary things like retire early. And I don't want to say retiring early is necessarily extraordinary, but there's not as many people doing it as they can because we hold ourselves back because we're afraid of what happens on the other side. And I've learned through my life that 80% of what ifs just don't happen. So I'm going to leave that there and keep it going. Now, look, closing a six-figure gap is a big move. And I know that one YouTube video can't answer every specific question about your unique career and family situation. That's why I finally built us a home base at AskSabado.com. And if you're feeling the pressure and want a second pair of eyes on your exit strategy, now you can head over and schedule a Chat with Sabado one-on-one meeting where you sit down with me and we talk for about an hour. And you could go through the comments, and anybody that's been on them is going to tell you that whether they agreed with what I said or not, it was just a conversation. It was like chatting with one of your homies. It's just a chance for us to sit person to person and talk about your roadmap without all the corporate stuff. And I'm also hard at work at building a vault of retirement resources to help us stay organized because we have situations that are going on. I'm dealing with situations where my best friend and other people I know, their aging parents are dealing with things like Alzheimer's and dementia, and they're dealing with physical issues, and they're just dealing with general safety issues around aging. And there's specific resources out there about that. You look at the Social Security Administration. The Social Security Administration website is a wealth of information. And people say, well, where do I find the Social Security Administration website? And I could tell you ssa.gov, but I'm going to put stuff like that on there. And then what I'm also going to do, because I'm active in a bunch of different communities, I'm going to start a newsletter. And that newsletter is just going to give you an idea of what I'm up to, maybe some of the exercise I do to stay healthy, what I've been up to, and some of the information that I've gleaned in articles that are sitting out there. Maybe they're articles from my financial advisor that are going to be able to help you understand what's going on in the markets as things go up and down and give you some perspective. I'm not saying it's going to be all the answers to all things because there is no one answer to everything, and there's never a one size fits all, but it gives you information that you can use. And my goal here is not to make money off you, but it's to make sure that more people are given the information that I was able to glean through the years because I had access to certain people and certain bits of information. And the last thing, and it's funny because I talk about not trying to get money out of you, but I'm also hard at work building out a merchandise store, which is an everyday retiree a Sabado merchandise store where you can see the stuff that I'm wearing. You can see my shirts, or you can see my hats, or you can see, equipment that I'm using. I'm just going to put it up there because people ask me, where do you get your shirts from? Where do you get your hats from? Where do you get some of the different things that you have? And I get a lot of private messages about stuff. So I'm just going to start putting that stuff out there. That's all going to be out on the website. And it's really just going to represent the Gen X retirement crew. And it's going to put us out there in style. So head over to the site, sign up for the updates, and let's start getting the plan on track. And one of the beautiful things that I've developed is I've developed an app that helps you calculate where you are in your retirement journey. The only thing I'm doing now is I'm working on taking that app and getting the code into my website so I could embed it in my website. And again, I'm just being transparent with you, getting it in the website so that way you could see where you are and what that may look like. So when you go and you talk to a professional, you would appear as though you've done your homework. So just to wrap up, the gap is real, but it's not a death sentence, and it's not something for you to have nightmares about. It requires a shift from the passive saver to becoming a strategic architect. I retired at 51 because I just stopped following the standard rules. I started looking at the math like an executive. When I look at the world, I look at it as budget actual variance. And if I'm not getting to where I'm budgeted, then that means, and my actuals are different, then I look at the variance and I try to understand what's the difference between what I'm doing now and where I want to be. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm just trying to help each of you out there gain some perspective along those lines. But I'm going to ask that you don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. You could visit asksabado.com and you could book your one-on-one, and it's all free. I don't charge you for anything. And we just start talking about the 5 to 10 year countdown. And if it's more, it's more. If it's less, it's less. And if you're already retired, you just want to shoot the breeze and talk about retirement, cool. I'm good with that because we're all fam here and we're just caught up in the mix trying to make a dollar out of 15 cents. You know what I mean? So subscribe to the channel, like the channel, but always remember that it's never my expectation that everybody retire early, but it is my expectation that you live your best life. So on that note, I'm going to cut it out. Have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.